I'm gonna put on a little bit of this real quick. Here we go. This is some KI news that came from Maximilian. Let's check it out real quick and see what the topic is about. Imagine. Of course, I'm gonna get hit with this stupid ad. Yeah. Just gotta wait for this thing to pass.
There were some people that worked at Smash GG before. Microsoft picked up Smash GG, which is like the big tournament database, record site / organizational, all that kind of stuff for fighting games. And there's a pretty crazy story from a Smash GG employee that closely ties into some of the efforts that we had back in the exact same time frame, maybe giving an indication of where Killer Instinct is at now. And I think, like, I'm probably one of the very few that can talk about this on public record just based on the stuff that I know from the game's development back in the day to, you know, just based on how a lot of devs at Microsoft sort of think and where they're at now. To sort of shed some light on this.
Oh, that's right. I totally forgot. Killer Instinct is a Microsoft property. And after what Microsoft just did to, like, to that development studio, it's very unlikely that they would invest into a fighting game right now because they just bought Activision Blizzard and they spent a fuckload of money and they can't afford to lose any more or, like, you know, shell out any more income at this point. They need to start making money back from the revenue that they've they need to start making money back from all the investments that they've been putting out, especially with how expensive Activision Blizzard was. So the only thing that they're probably going to be producing in the future is Warzone, free-to-play content that is very, like, you know, appealing to a mass market. More Call of Duty games. It's very unlikely that they're going to invest into a new fighting game at this point in time because it's not to say that it wouldn't be profitable. It just wouldn't be profitable enough because of how much money they invested into that partnership. It's very risky and very competitive, especially right now with the fighting game market. The fighting game market is very competitive right now. It's still got more room for people to be a part of, but I think KI is not going to get a sequel now that I'm thinking about it. I totally forgot that it was a Microsoft-owned product, which kind of, that blows.
It's a pretty crazy story. It came from Contra on Twitter, talking about how recently got laid off, I'm thinking from Smash GG. They were discussing the fact that there were a lot of things that went right and wrong at Smash GG, Start GG over the years. Can't stop lingering out, there was one event called Sajam's Lockout, which is something that did not exist, and that drove him insane. How 1 year after Microsoft acquired the platform and brought everyone on board as official Microsoft employees, things were really good. They were investing in the product, mostly a rebrand, but they wanted to put some money into a few DAU driving initiatives. Okay, cool. So it's like the guy that drove the ship at Microsoft initially was great. He knew the original team, knew more than anyone else about the community and the product, so he just let people do what they do. Cool. That kind of sounds like how Sony approached Evo, right? Just for comparison's sake. Like, let them do their thing still. Let the show run itself by the people that usually run the show. Yeah, okay, sounds good. After a lengthy onboarding and getting used to everything, everyone on the original Smash GG team was given an opportunity to pitch a project that's going to drive their daily active users. That's what the AU is. For example, this is when we really invested in fantasy on the platform. In the spring of 21, it was his idea when everyone was brought in on net play in games and lacked rollback netcode was being clowned on. You know, this is 2021. This is like the early rise of rollback netcode, especially when the pandemic was in the height of all of its crazy bullshit. His idea was to put on a tournament that bridged all the different gaps, and he knew just the game, which was KI. So this guy had some faith that, hey, KI is a pretty popular game. It's had a resurgence in the past few years in some minor way. Why was KI a good call at this point? Well, because Killer Instinct was in a fairly decent spot. There was a campaign that I ran in 2019 called #BringBackKI. This was a Twitter campaign that effectively got worldwide trending in the first like 24 hours, the first month that we were putting effort into it. This is 5 years ago, chat. A couple years later, hosted a tournament, but I do
remember hearing about this. I do remember Max doing this whole thing with Bring Back KI and trying to make an initiative for it. I don't think it's going to happen now. I think it's very unlikely now.
2019 that, yeah, actually Killer Instinct is one of like the top 5, top 10 best fighting games ever. Like a lot of people just feel this way about it. I think I can emphatically say this was 5+ years ago, and I've kept
honestly,
on board with a lot of the folks that made KI.
Now that I've played KI, I would still say it's got to be top 5 fighting games of all time right now, because it's just such a clean product. It's so good. It's got ton of content, ton of things to do, great online infrastructure, great system mechanics. It's just a really deep, fun fighting game. Definitely for a game that started out as a free-to-play fighting game, came a long ways, and I'm very late to the party. It's a damn shame, in my opinion, that it was an Xbox exclusive. Because of that, I think that the game would have blown up a lot bigger than what it is now. And now that it is effectively locked behind as an IP for Xbox itself and Microsoft, I don't see a possibility that they're going to be making a sequel anytime soon, let alone another project revolving around Killer Instinct anytime soon. It's not to say that it wouldn't be profitable, it's just not going to be Fortnite profitable. It's not going to be Warzone profitable. That's what they want.
But a lot of the folks that made KI moved to other departments. Microsoft shifted around a whole bunch in this time frame. Most of the teams and squads that were put together to make Killer Instinct got just siphoned into other divisions. The big heads, the big executive heads, everybody was just off doing completely different things now. And it felt like at the time, Killer Instinct was effectively lost to time. One of the things that procked this was that I went to E3 2019, the last E3. And at that E3,
you know, thinking back on this, they did do a recent update to KI for gameplay balance reasons. The game still is here, and there's still people to play with. Like, I played against, literally just earlier today, I was just playing against a handful of people online, and there's still people to play with. There's still a community. You can still play this game.
It seemed like, hey, we need to get this game back into the eyes and ears of people that are like, you know, up in the higher echelon.
It may be a smaller community than the newer fighting games out there, but at least this game still exists, and you can still enjoy it. It's still multi-platform, cross-platform, accessible to everyone.
Development had ceased, right? 2 years
except for PlayStation, of course, which is still, you know, sucks.
Done. And most of my
luckily I can play it on PC, so that's great.
Oh, there isn't a new Killer Instinct. Like, you would think that Microsoft would have obviously gotten the idea and just passed the baton along, coming up with solutions and stuff like that, but unfortunately, no. And there's a lot of reasons behind that. In 2019, there just was no devs. The long story short, that procced Bring Back KI, where it's like, okay, I get it. This is how this industry works. The only thing we can do, similar to other projects in the future, we just got to make enough noise.
And I could see that. I could see that being the case, where like, hey, the reason why they haven't made another KI is because there's no one that's willing, there's no studio that's willing to take up that mantle right now. There's no studio that feels confident about taking on making a fighting game, you know, making a fighting game, because there's very few fighting game development studios that are out there. These fighting games are very difficult to make. They're not just difficult to animate, they put a lot of work into not only balance and structure and lore and experience. Fighting games are really hard to make. They're one of the most difficult genres to make in general. It's easy to fuck up fighting games.
Begin this sort of like, you know, journey on Smash GG, which is also a Microsoft thing now, because of course that makes sense. It was perfect. KI was then on Game Pass, brand new on Game Pass. It had rollback.
But with Xbox's resources, not just Xbox, but Microsoft's resources, they could find a studio. They could.
And got approval to reach out to Sajam to be the brand and to do the work on running it. They were given about $3,000, which was the caveat. They split that between marketing. Sajam put some more money for the pot. Before we move on to how this changes, I go a couple of years personally as well, and I'm like, hey man, it's been a couple years since this KI thing has happened, bro, since we did this hashtag KI campaign, and there has been no audible sound in the industry that this franchise is moving forward in some way, which is like a travesty. We ran a tournament. We ran this tournament called Killer Instinct Twitch Rivals hashtag Bring Back KI tournament 2 years later. And this was a follow-up to our crazy Marvel vs. Capcom tournament. And
I did
we were
actually
like, hey,
see
you
this
know
tournament,
what
and it
might
was
be
fucking cool. Like, it was
let's just
super
get all
cool.
of the Killer Instinct community together in one area.
It wasn't just like it wasn't just great to watch players play, but like Max doing his production stuff going on and all his little skits in between is like a prime example of like why those tournaments are so fun to watch. I enjoy watching community run tournaments a lot if they put in the same work that Max did, because it's just really, it's a great breath of fresh air and a fun way to approach like
a game that has been dead for a long
fighting
time,
game, like
was
tournaments
now
in general
performing
and
once
competitions.
again, where it was like, damn, dude, look at all these people that showed up just to celebrate Killer Instinct in some way. The best players in the world showing up here, the best players in the world showing up there. It was amazing. And this went down at the beginning of 2021. The beginning of 2021. Bringing us back to the story. Numbers came back, things were looking good, successfully brought the users up. Hope was we could draw a partnership with Sajam, either to run a series that rotates rollback enabled titles or to just keep running KI since it's a Microsoft property. Another important thing to note, the only reason that Marvel tournament and the KI tournament happened, which were officially sanctioned tournaments, right? We could not run Twitch Rivals events without effectively the blessing of Marvel Capcom for Marvel 3 and Microsoft for KI. The only reason we kind of got it, I'm thinking, is because I knew the right people to get a hold of. For some reason, some months later in the spring of the same year after we ran a really big KI tournament that got a lot of heads and attention, and a Twitter campaign a couple years back that got a lot of heads and attention, the tournament doesn't happen. The next week, the boss schedules a meetup for the dude that's going to run this KI event, relatively small, and it's with Microsoft Game Studios, and they want us to never do anything like that again. They told me they didn't want to make anyone think they were working on a sequel, and that a Microsoft...
No fucking shot. Are you shitting me? Why would they fucking do that?
Is because I knew the right people to get a hold of. For some reason, some months later in the spring of the same year after we ran a really big KI tournament that got a lot of heads and attention, and a Twitter campaign a couple years back that got a lot of heads and attention, the tournament doesn't happen. The next week, the boss schedules a meetup for the dude that's going to run this KI event, relatively small, and it's with Microsoft Game Studios, and they want us to never do anything like that again. They told me they didn't want to make anyone think they were working on a sequel, and that a Microsoft-sponsored event on StartGG could justify those theories. It didn't make any sense to any of us either, but the idea... the concept was dead, just like that. All I gotta say.
So basically what ended up happening was that Microsoft doesn't want people bitching them out. So I've always said this in the past. There is no such thing as good PR. Like, there used to be a common statement, you know, from a long time that, you know, good PR can swing both ways. You can, if you have bad PR, it's still... any attention is good attention. So if you have bad PR, it's still good PR because you're still getting people, you know, to hear about the brand and your name, even if it sucks. That does not hold float anymore today. PR teams are fucking so sick and tired of getting bad press, and there is no greater example of this than Xbox. Like, Xbox is not only getting shelled out for their bad PR that they're dealing with now, but also back when the Xbox One was first announced, they never properly recovered from that. They suffered not only sales, but investors started pulling out at that point in time. So, Xbox has been playing catch up ever since then. So bad PR has a meaningful effect, and that's why they don't want people talking about KI right now. It's because they don't want people to know about, hey, we're not working on another project, and we don't want people getting the idea in their head that we are working on one only to be disappointed. And not only that, we don't want people talking about another fucking KI in general. The more people are talking about it, the more bad PR it is for us, because now we have to deal with this bullshit. And we are now currently already dealing with the acquisition of Blizzard, of Activision Blizzard. So, you know, we're already in enough hot water as it is. Granted, this shit happened long before this conversation ever happened, but that's definitely on their mind now. That's definitely the case. They're never gonna acknowledge it now. They want this shit as far down the road as possible, which is why they're not gonna work on another KI. You know, it's just they don't want to deal with any more bullshit right now.
Is that this lines up. There's a lot of stuff happening around this time frame. Everything that I understand, and there's been rumors around this time that they were fishing overseas as well for a developer. No kidding, like potentially Bandai Namco, other devs could have been ones that could have actually taken KI, and they just couldn't find anybody. So why in this time frame is it obvious that in 2021 somebody at MS doesn't want to give the idea that we're making a new KI, which is ridiculous? It's because they don't have a dev, and they've probably been bugged about this a whole bunch, and they're like, we don't have a developer, you know? It's weird that they wouldn't want to cultivate their fan base in some way, run events and have their little game that could still perform and keep performing better than most things.
Again, people would just be pestering them. They're just going to keep bothering them about making another game. And they don't want to deal with it. It's as simple as that, because bad PR fucking sucks. And especially sucks in today's society, because everyone's so overly, so interconnected with the internet that when you get railed by bad PR, it fucking sucks. It really does.
Long story short, there is no dev for KI, there is no KI being made. Just more bad news from Microsoft of them not having any clue what to do with their franchises. They have absolutely no idea what to do with their franchises that have done well for them in the past. A lot of people are taking this as a sign that, like, oh, modern KI is going through a resurgence in some way.
I'm also going to be quite frank. I think that a large component of this has to do with the fact that no one at Microsoft actually cares or values these particular franchises. The only franchises that they're interested in is the ones that make the money, or the ones that have new ventures to grow into different kinds of monetization. Like right now, meeting their investors' needs is more important, especially with the recent acquisition and all the shit that's been happening.
They got Iron Galaxy back. They are available. They're no longer working on Rumbleverse, right? Clearly, that's a sign that things are different now. They're putting in money into tournaments. There is a new trailer. Look at this trailer, man. Look at it. This trailer's amazing. They have a new trailer and everything.
Wow, Dan.
Come on,
how'd
now.
you get your tires so shiny?
Get out of my face, advertisement. I don't need you in my life. Give it a couple seconds. It shouldn't take very long for this thing to wrap up, but I really do think that Microsoft is like the changing that's happening out in Microsoft is industry changing, because Microsoft has their hands in so many different IP products that a lot of these games like KI are just not going to see the light of day for a long time. Fortunately, we still have the original KI, and it's still accessible to the public, and it's not locked to just Xbox alone. You can at least get it on PC. So I'm grateful enough for that. But it would be great to see a sequel, or at least an announcement of them working on a sequel, even if it isn't very far along. But I think that it's not just the developers that they're just struggling to find, even though that would make sense, because having a development team that specializes for fighting games is really hard to find. But if Microsoft wanted to find a development studio, they would. They absolutely would be able to. They could even source their own. They're just not going to do it because it's not worth the investment, and it's especially not worth the investment after what has just happened now with the acquisition Activision. That. There we go.
Trailer and everything. This recently dropped at the Combo Breaker tournament, to highlight the fact that, hey, they have a 10th anniversary version of the game now. It's got a bunch of brand new free content. Working on Steam, it's cross-playing with everything. It's friggin' insane. No, I did not make this trailer. This is one of the few trailers for KI I did not make. So it's like, cool. This is one of the few trailers for KI I did not make.
Steam, Windows, which is the one I've been playing on, the free version of it. I will probably get the Game Pass version of the game so I can get the whole game, get the whole roster. I'm just basically fucking around with just the free version because it's accessible right now. And I'm a little stingy on my money. Have my priorities. So thank God for a free-to-play version that's available, so that way I can at least experience the beauty of the game and eventually move my way into it eventually.
So it's like, cool. That is cool that all this stuff is existing, right? It's very cool that all this stuff, this content is existing, but something really irked me about this entire thing. especially after what just happened over the span of the past couple of months, was a lot of the content that was in this game was free. And that sort of gave me a not so good inclination about the future of KI. You could take this and the tournament support and all that stuff, because clearly something is happening at Microsoft. Some people that really like KI at Microsoft are supporting it in some way with this anniversary collection. But recently Iron Galaxy dudes said that they're not working on it anymore. And also this reeks of something that happens in this industry a lot, where they'll give you a little bit of a budget to see if people still care, to act as a test. And it's either you can see this as a sign of there being a new KI in the future, because this is all very different than this. It's all very different than what's going on here. It's the exact opposite of what's going on here. Now they're actually supporting this stuff in some way. But at the same time, we're now in the 30th anniversary of KI. We got this 10th anniversary update. Cool. This is all very cool. But the way that it was handled, in my opinion, makes it feel like this is not a sign of there being a new Killer Instinct.
And the reason for that is because, so what Max is talking about is that this is a common practice in the industry for video games in general. Especially noticeable in fighting games, because the fighting game market is super volatile. It's really hard to get a beat on it. And a large component of it comes down to the fact that a lot of people have mishandled fighting games in the past. And there was this huge time period that lasted for like a good 6 or 7, maybe almost 8 years. I can't remember the exact time frame, but it was like between when it was before Street Fighter 4 came around, but it was like shortly after Street Fighter 4 and many years before. So many years before Street Fighter 4 came out, and then like 2 or 3 years after Street Fighter 4, there was effectively no competition. It's more like 2 or 3 years, after Street Fighter 4, and there was like no competition on there. It was basically just Street Fighter 4 that was out there. It was basically the only like real successful fighting game that was really out there. But fighting games that were releasing at that time were selling very, very, very poorly. They were not doing very well. And this was at the time there was a lot of thoughts that fighting games are just not marketable and they're not mass appealing. So there were a lot of there's a lot of companies that felt like this isn't worth the venture. People are not interested in this. And then, you know, Street Fighter 4 came around, and that really revived the fighting game scene. But more importantly, it also showed people that were developing these games, there is a market here. People are interested in it at the casual level. There are plenty of people that would play these games and enjoy these games. So a lot of what would happen shortly after Street Fighter 4 was released is that a lot of fighting game developers, and particularly Capcom is mostly known for this, where they would release re-releases of an older game to see, oh, well, we don't know if this game's going to work, so let's re-release an old game and see if people are going to actually play it. And more often than not, they would charge like, you know, a budget version of the game, or maybe a $60 version of the game, by saying, we'll package it together with a collection of games. You know, it'll be a collection of fighting games. So pay us $60 to play, you know, 6 fighting games that are all bundled together. And most people wouldn't buy it. You know, it would sell well, but not sell well enough. They would make a profit probably, but not a large enough profit where the investors and the company heads would be like, well, I'm not so convinced about it. And the reason why it doesn't work is because the only people that are going to buy that shit are the people that are fans of it already. People that are interested in the legacy of those games. New players are not going to buy that game because it's not a new product and it's not a fully valued product. That's a big thing right now, is that making sure that if you're going to buy a new video game, it's worth its asking price. And so whenever you buy a collection of games or a legacy of a game for full price, you're going to be like, I don't really know, you know, that's an old game. Is there really anyone that's going to be playing that? And anyone that is playing that, they've been playing it for the last like 20 or 30 years. It's going to be incredible. I'm not going to play that. And that just becomes the case where people that only buy the game are just people that played it before. And that's the problem with that mentality. So in Max's mind, he's basically stating that that's probably what they're doing with KI right now, because they're releasing all this content for free. They're not monetizing any of it, so they're just saying, well, just have it, because we're just, you know, finished with this franchise for now.
in the near future. If you were to start a brand new project like a new Killer Instinct in this day and age with this industry in its current state, with an entire studio that does not have a history of making fighting games or has made the previous KI, it's a 5 to 7 year project, bro. You'll be in like the next generation leading into the generation after that. It would be insane because everyone would have to learn everything all over again. It would be
He's right
insane.
about that.
So the only devs that are out
he's
there
absolutely
to make
right
this
about
is
that.
Iron Galaxy. That's it. If this is the test and it doesn't work out and this doesn't actually push units of the game, you know, which is just, all this thing is telling you everything is free, just go play it. It's crazy to me how, again, Microsoft would take an existing franchise that has done super well in the past and has consistently performed for them over the span of 10 years to now ask people to show up again for the old thing when what is everybody expecting here, right? Everybody's expecting the new Killer Instinct.
People are not going to buy the old product. As much as I may be a new player that joined recently with KI, I haven't even bought the new game. And the major component of the reason why is because I would like to buy the new game if that is the case and just enjoy this one. I'll probably buy it on, you know, get it on Game Pass sooner or later, probably later. But at this point in time, you know, I'm more than content with the free-to-play version. That's fine. This is where we go back to the major component of where is Microsoft's agenda? Where is Xbox's agenda? And when they shut down those studios, they told the world what their goal is. Their interest is not making profit. Their interest is making enormous profit. Fortnite profit. That's where their interest is, because the acquisition of Activision was so fucking expensive. They need to make money back. It cannot fly.
Everyone's expecting, and we just assume, hey, there's...
You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of Breaking Bad, when Gus is like legitimately pissed off at Walter White and Jesse for not doing their jobs, because the investment into that business was so freaking expensive that he needed to make profit immediately. So every time that they didn't work, it made him fucking go off the rails, because he was like, I'm bleeding money here. I've invested way too much money, and I need to start making money back right now. You need to do your job. It's kind of what it reminds me of. That's effectively like Microsoft right now. Microsoft is like Gus freaking out at these studios.
There's a new KI in the background. Of course there is. You can't not have one. That would be insane, right? As we heard back in 2021, they did not want to give you that expectation. All I'm saying is that I still don't expect it. I'm in a spot where I see what's going on here, and I don't initially think of this as really good news about a new KI. I think of this as a sign. This is them effectively testing if their franchise is going to be doing something. And why is it over? Potentially because Microsoft is going through its biggest shakeup in like company history.
Yes.
At least at Xbox side. All things considered, I don't think it's a sign of a new KI. And if you want to support this in any way, you need to like just download and play the game. That's it. That's the only thing you can do. That's it, man. And there's still a ton of people playing it. There's still like plenty of people between all the different versions.
I mean, I've jumped on and I ran into like at least like, you know, 12 different people. You know, 12 is not a lot, but in a fighing game terms, it does sound like a lot, because I never fought the same opponent over and over and over again. There's plenty of people rotating through it.
They might turn into
I just didn't play it for very long online, but I enjoyed it.
Might actually start making games once again. I'm a little dour on the situation because I've been trying for so many years. I've been trying since 2019 to do everything I possibly can in order to get this shit up to a state where it's like, hey, how much more do we have to do to show you that people care? How much more do we have to do to do something like this?
There's nothing that anyone can do, and the reason why is because their agenda has changed. Their focus has changed,
and it's nuts that right now
Microsoft is not interested in making a new product that makes profit. They need more than that.
Iron Galaxy, who made the previous KI, who can make a game twice as fast as any other developer, and you also
that's why I was nervous about these stories, because it's going to affect the industry as a whole. All of the industries are going to be doing this now.
The stars can align only so much for this franchise. It's rough, man. Like, Hey, I'm a Marvel vs. Capcom fan. I have dealt with the worst of it all for the past, like, decade, man. I'll still support Killer Instinct in any way. Killer Instinct and Marvel vs. Capcom are my hero franchises. I'll do fucking anything for them. And I'll also bitch and moan up the mountain if things are not looking good. If anything changes in the future, I'll let you guys know. And hopefully you can go to Steam right now or your Xbox or Windows or whatever and just download the game. It's literally free.
Fun. Great video, but very sad to hear about. But it is true. It is true. It's just the nature of the beast. Just the nature of the beast. All right.